The office is on mute.
Right now.
I'm muted.
What are we, what's our microphone?
Better.
Okay,
All set.
all right.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay, we will try again. Welcome, everyone. This is the August Executive Committee meeting of CB2. My name is Susan Kent. I am the chair of the board. And thank you all for showing up. And let's get started. The first item on the agenda is approval of the July committee minutes. Is there any questions on them?
Yes,
Huh?
again, second month in a row, it's listed, not listed.
Oh, okay.
Same.
Oh,
And it's also on the attendance properly.
Oh, so
that I've been
you-
moved, not been- not-
You're non-voted.
Janine's here.
And Janine is here. Okay.
so that will be corrected.
More than-
in person,
Hi. Okay.
the website.
Okay. Got it. Yeah, the website will deal with, the minutes. We have a correction for Carter. He was incorrectly identified in the committee minutes from last month.
As,
Yes,
As a what?
the executive committee.
He's a non-voting member.
Yeah, he's a non. He's on the second.
Okay, let's make a note that has to be corrected. He will tell you exactly what's wrong with it. Okay. If there's nothing, are there any other corrections or questions on them? If not, I will take a motion to approve the minutes.
Oh, so moved.
And a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Any nays, abstentions, recusals? None. Thank you. Okay, chair's report. A few items, for those of you who don't know, we did have another member resign last week, Natasha Avanasians. She is moving out of the district, so she has submitted her resignation. We are now a complement of 48. Have not heard anything about new replacement yet. I did receive today a request from Senator Kavanaugh's office, looking for suggestions for nominees for the New York State Veterans Hall of Fame. Looking for either nominees of particular individuals or organizations that can recommend to individuals. If anyone is aware of this, please forward information to the office. The Borough President's Council, Tommy Vest, is moving on. I mention this because at the end of the week, she is holding a consult. So if anyone has any legal questions that they want answered sooner rather than later, now's your time to bring them forward. If you have any legal questions that you would like resolved, please address them to Mark. He is going to be attending and we can get you answers because I do not know when her replacement, if her replacement would be in place right away. It is the time of year for community planning fellows. This year, the deadline for submissions is September the 29th, but of course we need to review whatever suggestions you have. If we have, we can submit for up to 2 of our priorities. And I would hope that in the next week or so, anybody who is interested in having a fellow, please forward your suggestions to me and to Mark. We have to decide, we may have to limit the pool of submissions. So the sooner we do that, the better.
but the date is that,
But everything has to be in by the 29th of September. So in order for us.
Foundation again.
Yes, it is the same program as we've had in years past. You get, each fellow works up to 15 hours a week. It's a question of matching our priorities to the candidates that they have available. So I guess the best thing is a combination of hearing the range of issues that you would like to have someone work on, combined with which committees in the past have had them versus those that have yet to take advantage of this opportunity. So
So as committee chair, we might identify a project, a research project.
Absolutely.
Essentially, that would be useful to the scope of our. community. And that's-
exactly.
And it's time enough to discuss this at the next committee meeting and just decide among the committee and then pass it along. It doesn't-
It depends. In your case, there might be. In Susanna's case, there's not. That's why I'm bringing it up now. And of course, if there are multiple committees that have proposals, we're going to have to narrow down the list. So that's why I'm asking you to start thinking about it now.
But to think now and then to settle it at the committee meeting is not too late.
Well, no, it depends on, well, it also depends on, look, if you as chair can certainly, solicit feedback from your committee, but it's your proposal to submit.
Okay, well, if it doesn't have to be a formal meeting, we
It
can.
doesn't have to be a formal meeting. This is
Good.
simply,
That's fine.
this is an
Thank you.
administrative matter. Yeah.
We have one pending, so we
I just want to point out a critical part of the idea is 1 or 2 CB2 board members who will manage the planning fellow. Because Shirley Secunda and Dan Miller spent a ton of time managing the fellows. So it is, you
They
do
do
the,
guidance.
yes. So just remember, you can't just throw out an idea and assume someone else will do it. You've got to support it.
Two things. One, Susanna always has really great proposals and multiple of them. Back at yours is the best practice, number one. And then,
We know she'll do.
so that's a good resource for anyone who's looking for an idea. Sorry, just volunteering your past proposals.
I've still been interested in a parking company, because I feel that that's somewhere we don't have, but that's not a conversation right.
And then Shirley, what advice do you have for us to think about, since we're all here and managing them, like
Oh,
just like
golly,
two
I'm
things?
just trying to think. You have to spend a lot of time.
So everyone's on notice. If you submit something and we move forward with your proposal, please be prepared to support the process by supervising and assisting your fellows.
And I also don't you have to be very specific about what output will be, what the deliverable will be.
Yes,
And
correct.
so and just start to think about what their methodology will be.
Right.
We proposed plan to NYU for one of their capstone projects, and they didn't accept it. They didn't feel like it was peer enough. So it could have used refining and been resubmitted, so this is just something to think that, you have to go through what you want.
And I would add one more thing, that you may start out with a much broader idea of what you're gonna do. And then when you realize what the parameters really should be, you narrow it down. So that really-
Yeah. Michael, please.
May I add something, Susan?
Well, otherwise your hand is not, just go right ahead.
Okay, again, I managed the program for the fund for the city of New York before my retirement. And I need to reiterate what we're hearing right now from Janine and from Shirley. It is crucial that whatever project or priority this board submits must have a person on the board, preferably a committee chairperson, willing to give the amount of time required to the fellow. They're required to work 15 hours a week. They can work in the community board office, they can work in their school, they can work from home. But the person from the community board who is supervising them needs to be available 15 hours a week to work with them, not necessarily on top of them, but to be available to supervise the work that's being done. The most successful project submitted by any of the fellows from any of the community boards has always been how much supervision they had from the community board. They are working for the community board. They are in some ways staff to the community board, but they're also here to learn from us, to learn from the issues at CB2. And if we continue on the path we've had, we will have a successful year, but we must have someone who in fact is willing to commit a substantial substantial amount of time, as Shirley and Dan did, to work with the fellow. It's an excellent program, and I hope we can work with it again this coming year. I'm available if anyone wants to discuss it further in the future.
Wonderful. Thank you, Michael. Thank you very much. And this is why starting to think about it should, start now so that there's no rush and we can work through, the proposals in terms of refining them.
I just want to add, it's also very rewarding working with those young people. Because the ones who qualify for the program were creative, original, and enthusiastic.
Great.
There's that degree, you're putting in the time, but it's fun too.
Okay, thank you. And just the last item, there is a piece of new business. This is a resolution so that we're authorizing those members with qualifying disabilities. The reason that we're doing this is so that while the amended law allows this possibility, I was advised by council that we are required to actually formally authorize it. I can go into more detail later, but it was something that was brought up at the July Borough Board, but of course that's the same day as full board. So that's why we're hearing it now, because we haven't had an opportunity. And with that, that's the end of my report. So we are district manager.
Okay, thank you. It's also the time of year for the district needs statement and statement of budget priorities. I have located last year's. I'm trying to find it on Word so you can actually mark it up. But if I can't find that, I'll circulate this week.
Excuse me, could Mark move to the table, please? People who are not at the table are very hard to hear.
Sorry about that. So it's district needs statement time. And it's actually that one. The Word version if I can. And it's just as a reminder, each committee will be asked to identify their number one priority. It's a form we're filling in, so we have to identify them the way in which the form accepts them. And then the full board identifies 3 priorities, just no surprise. Last year, our 3 top priorities were land use trends - affordable housing, parks and open space with an emphasis on the Elizabeth Street Garden, and schools with an emphasis on the Bleecker Street School. So the committees will identify their priorities and their district needs. Generally speaking, there are space limitations on the form, but it is within that, it is both appropriate and encouraged to identify needs, including ones that may not be susceptible of a budget solution. Well, the document is clearly on the budget. And not every committee will have a budget priority. That's just the reality of it. Although sometimes you're asking for more staff for the agency with which you correspond, which would be an expense. Oh, and by the way, I'm assuming that we all know that there are 2 different categories of budget priorities: capital and expense. Capital is something that costs more than $50,000 and lasts more than 5 years. Expense is everything else. The way I like to summarize that is, so capital would be building the basketball court and expense would be running the program with kids. Switching gears, the mayor's initiative, it's called Breaking Barriers. I may be butchering that. Susan and I have been working on that. Susan has an idea about ways in which we can bring folks together in the community that might not otherwise be brought together. And so we're going to be pushing to get that together in the next couple of weeks because the mayor's office wants us to. I've been following along. There's been a recent uptick in enforcement activity in Washington Square Park that, among other things, includes street performers and what they refer to as expressive content vendors. And there's a lot to say about that, but basically I am not there to espouse a position, but simply to listen and report back. Councilmember Marte, whose district includes Washington Square Park for now, has been taking the lead on that and will continue to follow that wherever it goes. The most interesting thing about that is that come January, I believe the Washington Square Park changes to Councilmember Rivera's district. So one of the things that we're trying to do is build a bridge so that they don't get something on their agenda starting on January 2nd that they weren't prepared or ready for. I think that's it for now. Always available for questions. Thanks.
Okay, I don't see any questions. So let's,
May I say something about Washington Square? The spillover from it has incessantly been Sixth Avenue along the area of the 4th Street subway. That is very, very considerably improved owing to what might dramatically be called a massive police presence. There seem always to be police there, and the street and the subway are ever so much better than they've ever been.
good to know. Thank you. Okay, if there's nothing else with questions regarding either of those reports, let's review the September calendar and anything going forward. You have the calendars through the end of the year. Right now, the most important would be, of course, September and October. And first of all, if anybody, any of the chairs who have their committees are already on here, if that works for you, great. If not, please say so. And to the extent that any committee chair is looking for a space, then if their committee doesn't appear on here. Okay. September is a notoriously difficult month. Right now, it's only looking like the 26th.
So I can have like Thursday.
That is landmarks. So it normally, we would not be doubling up.
I'm not having a video this month, so I'm going to go after candidate.
Okay, and is cannabis being, when are you starting that meeting? Okay, so you could have the 12th, therefore, if you started at say 7 o'clock. Would that work for you? Okay. I think
Seven applications.
you have how many?
Two.
2 applications. So if she started at 6, 7, it may be, we'll work out the time. We'll work out the time.
So can I move back?
Well, then your backup would be the 26th. Okay. Okay. And anything on October? If you change your mind, you can always contact me and Mark later. But it looks like those months are shaping up okay. So let's move to our standing.
The November of the full board is still. Usually it would be the 16th, always been on.
It's the second to last Thursday, which is.
Thanksgiving, but we always do.
Oh, that's right, Thanksgiving. You're correct. That's correct. Okay, you're right.
We always do.
Okay.
For the last.
I think we're not going to do.
That's fine.
But the 16th is landmark.
And that's why I raised it. Our board has never had the full board following Thanksgiving.
It's always been before. That's true. Okay, you know, let's work that one out. It's November. We can certainly circulate a revised calendar after we adjust that. But if right now September and October are good, then we have to we'll figure out exactly what's appropriate for Thanksgiving. Okay, so let's go to our standing committee reports for those committees that have resolutions. And we'll start with landmarks. And you're muted, Chanel.
All
I'm
right.
sorry, I'm trying to be so nice. The first is number 1 Bond Street. No one appeared, so it's the usual. They must appear before they will be heard by the commission. 110 Green Street to replace infill on the ground floor. This is a high-end retailer coming into one that's not particularly distinguished nor difficult, and they're making small changes to it. We recommend approval of the application with the minimal change in existing conditions and preserves the architectural integrity of the building. 92 Horatio Street to apply new brownstone stucco facade to the entire ground floor, install new wood entry doors in the existing opening, and replace existing windows and security grills. Approval of the ground floor windows, security grills, and replacement of the headers. Detailing of the stucco coating is denied unless it is of a brownstone color and to a traditional manner to suggest brownstone in keeping with the style of the building. Oh, everything's unanimous, by the way. 338 West 12th Street. To reduce existing 4th floor, construct a new rooftop stair, bulkhead, and mechanicals. Construct a new 1-story rear start extension and alter the rear facade, excavate and alter within the horse walk. On approval of the horse walk, we're very protective of them, and their solution is, since they want to incorporate into the building, to put a wall within it some feet back so that walking by it, there's no change. Areaway modifications are approved. The alteration to the non-visible rooftop addition is all approved. It didn't change the envelope, which was critical. The excavation of the cellar and garden be denied until plans and engineering studies are provided to the commission, which in their view ensures that the work does not endanger the integrity of the subject building, the adjoining buildings, the adjoining gardens, and the rear garden structures, and that the commission at its discretion return the application to CB2 Community Board for a public hearing if it deems appropriate. This is an ongoing problem with excavation that particularly intrudes onto the lot line and how they handle the very delicate matter of underpinning what essentially is the walls of the building and the neighboring building. And it's a very difficult thing, and it must be done exactly right. And these people seem altogether vague about it. 130 Bank Street to install a new steel deck on the first floor level over existing cellar extension, include new pavers, steel structures, railings, stair access to the interior stair hallway, replace one window with a door at the stair, and add new lighting at the exterior facade. There is a spiral staircase, quite non-historic on the back, and it's clearly visible from public thoroughfare through the end of the block, though it's low. The applicant didn't seem to understand that it wasn't all right to build a mock-up later, and agreed to come back to us presumably in September, so there's no recommendation. 51 Downing Street, replace entry doors, garage door, 4th floor windows, replace existing rooftop addition with a new mezzanine addition. Approve the garage door, entrance door together with their lighting. The rooftop addition is a box with glass on two sides. It is massively visible from at least several places on 7th Avenue, and just in no way fits into the building, into the district. And it's almost an affront to have brought it forward. Absolute denial of the rooftop addition as of a design that does great harm to the historic district and is unacceptably visible by the standard of minimal visibility for rooftop additions that has guided the commission with respect to the district. If the applicant wishes to have consideration of an addition, that it be of design that is in harmony with the building and district and greatly reduced in size and visibility in order that is in tune with the district, and the applicant is instructed by the commission to return to CB2 for a public hearing on the revised proposal. Shall I go on to the letter?
Yeah.
This is all that's voted on. So the other is a letter which you've seen in the packet that is to the National Park Service concerning the Soho rezoning and its implications on landmarks. They have given a special designation to Soho, which is based on the very thing that we feel is going to be imperiled by the new zoning, and that is its unity and numbers and numbers of buildings that are untouched and that make it the neighborhood that it is. And the committee through the board is seeking their advice and their alliance and working with this very delicate problem. Do you want to say more about it, Susan?
I'm sorry?
You want
You
to
want
say?
to say more about the letter?
The letter is, we reference our resolution that we passed on the rezoning. We are attaching it. We're attaching other documentation that supports our concerns. This is really a letter of inquiry to find out whether or not we can solicit support from the National Park Service. At this point, that's really all that it's doing. If there's any questions about it.
Yeah, my question is that given that, I don't understand how this process works, so given the fact
Can
that.
Suzanne come to the table? Susanna, I can't hear
Yeah,
at all.
I'm just curious about process, given that there already exists with Soho, I guess, a municipal historic district, right, of Soho? How would these layer over one another? Is that the idea?
To be clear, this is a designation that has been in existence for decades. It is there is a national designation already in place. What we're doing is basically reminding the Park Service, this is in place. And despite the fact that it's in place, it's still imperiled. And that's what we're seeking, advice on what can be done about that.
I did. But
And importantly, it's called a National Historic District.
Yes.
So it is the whole of the district that is what makes it, in their view, worthy of designation.
It's actually, I believe this is one of only two in the country that is an entire district that is recognized for its unique quality, the unique quality of its preservation as an entire district. So, yes, Shirley.
Yeah, a question, and this may be because I didn't see any of the attachments. To me, this doesn't seem to say anything about what the zoning is going to lead to. in new zoning. I mean, it says, you know, there'll be damaging, but it's general.
Well, it is a general because it's supposed to elicit their awareness and attention and start a discussion about what, if anything, what kind of assistance they can offer us.
Okay, but shouldn't it be saying that
And this is,
zoning is going to allow for such and such more floor area development?
this is about a landmarks. That's why this is not coming through. This is not coming through from a zoning perspective. This is coming through from a landmarks perspective. And I think the committee focus was trying to keep it that way to make sure, because federal agencies are limited in their, you know, so to keep it focused squarely on the landmark aspect. And I see, we have, yes, Brian.
It has been brought to my attention that the proper spelling of the Soho Historic District is capital S-O, capital H-O.
Mhm.
We do spell it that way in the second and in the third paragraph of the letter. But it's not that way in the first paragraph or the last paragraph. So we want to be consistent, and I believe that it's considered proper as.
Thank you. Thank you.
And then on the resolution or the report of the Landmarks Committee, I would note that as the introduction, it was the only August meeting that is being reported on rather than the July. And also that the applicants are in order 1 through 6, but number 4 has is 338 West 12th, which should be number 4, but the number 4 got dropped out. So it is in sequence properly, but the number 4 does not precede it.
It's on my copy. Are we reading separate one?
It's in none of our copies. So as long as we correct that,
Okay, let me get the people on the screen first. Michael.
Yes, I'd like to speak for one moment about the letter. I think the letter is an excellent idea. We have to remember that the National Park Service has no enforcement power over anything that happens in the historic district, but I think it's important that we update their records to let the National Park Service know that on top of their designation of the historic district, that we have a zoning change that could affect their designation. It keeps the record straight, and at least the people in the National Park Service know that the zoning has been changed. Something may happen in the future. Although they have no enforcement power, they should know what's happening in their historic districts. So I think it's an excellent idea for the committee to have brought this letter forward.
Thank you. Eugene.
Yes, thank you. I also want to echo what Michael was saying. I mean, I think the letter is it's great that it's coming through the Landmarks Committee as a landmarks issue. I just don't want to be too pedantic, but I think that we had talked about Soho, the H being capitalized. I think there were some additional items in the letter, I think, where we referenced the Soho Cast Iron Historic District. For some reason, it's not capitalized that way. There's a couple of other instances. I think, Brian, I didn't hear you mention that, but, you know, in reference to the Soho Cast Iron Historic District, that should also be capitalized with an H. And it's several other places as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's always important to have extra eyes, fresh eyes. Look at this. Carter.
No vote as well. It's you spell it wrong.
Thank you. Okay.
And then also we should be seeing the local electeds, Councilmember Marte, Senator Kevin. It's basically true, not the sun letter.
Okay.
I'm just going to read my minutes.
Thank you.
I don't have,
Did you have your hand up?
I don't, I sent you.
Another slight change. It's the Municipal Art Singular Society rather than arts.
Okay. Michael, is your hand still up or is this something additional? Probably,
No, I'm sorry. I will lower my hand.
okay, okay. Thank you, everybody, for those technical comments and everything else, and, we will incorporate them and circulate it. And if there's no objection, the resolutions will go into an omnibus as we normally do, so we can have one vote at the end. Okay?
Okay,
Okay. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, next one is quality of life then.
and I'm presenting
Okay,
for the
excellent.
Quality of Life Committee. And there were 14 resolutions. And the first one is for 9/7/23, the flash flamboyance, sponsored Dunco on behalf of Tourism Corporation of Bonaire. And it's an Astor Place Plaza South full activation. For those, well, to summarize the whereas is it is the island of Bonaire that is publicizing for tourism by having a display and a little handout of promotional luggage tags at the Astor Place. We resolved that CB2 Manhattan recommends denial of flash flamboyance. And that was 6 in favor of denial and 1 abstain, Lucio Sands. Number 2 is 9/5/23 to 9/6/23, the Rachel Comey Fashion Show, sponsored by Rachel Comey Studio. This is a partial sidewalk closure on the east side of Crosby Street between Bleecker and Houston Street. And whereas the applicant didn't appear, we resolved that we recommend denial of the Rachel Comey Fashion Show. And that was unanimous. Number 3 is 9/5/23 to 9/6/23 at Aldo Astor Place, sponsored by Amir Shayagan. And that's the full Astor Place Plaza South. And the resolution recommends approval of Aldo Astor Place, provided that the applications conform with all applicable laws, rules, regulations, and clearance requirements. Approved unanimously. Number 4 is 9/6/23. This is the Breitling vehicle display, sponsors IDECO. And they are using the curb lane only on the east side of Washington Street between 13th and 14th Streets. And it comes around the corner on West 14th Street between Washington and 9th Avenue, curb lane only on the south side. Therefore, be it resolved that CB2 Manhattan recommends approval of the Breitling vehicle display, provided that the applications conform with all laws, rules, and regulations. Adopted unanimously. Number 5 is 9/7/23, Lingua Franca, FW, sponsor Lingua Franca. This is a full sidewalk closure at Washington between Jane and Horatio, on the east side. And therefore be resolved, recommends denial of Lingua Franca, FW. They did not appear. And that was adopted unanimously. Number 6, 9/8/23, Lingua Franca embroidery event, 2023.
Never mind.
I have that on mine. So this is the second, the Lingua Franca. It's an embroidery event. And the sponsors lingua franca, Jane Street between Greenwich and Washington Streets, north partial, southwest closure. Washington Street between Jane and Horatio, east partial, southwest closure in front of 95 Jane Street. Therefore, be resolved, recommends denial of lingua franca. They also did not appear, and also resolved that CB2 Manhattan notes that the proposed event location is in an extremely residential area, and should any event be held in such location despite CB2's recommended denial, no amplified sound should be allowed, was voted unanimous. Number 7 is 9/8/23, setup and start date, and 9/9/23 for end date. Steve Madden Shoe Closet, glass truck on Broadway between Broome and Spring. And again, we resolved to deny because they didn't show up. Voted unanimously. And number 8 is 9/8/23 to 9/10/23. SkinCeuticals 2023, sponsor L'Oreal on Washington Street between 8th and 9th Avenue.
No such place.
Yeah.
Sorry,
There's no such place. No such location. I was gonna raise my hand. Yeah, I looked it up on the map.
what in the world?
I thought maybe 8 feet, so no.
Okay, it's been called out that that location would not be accurate, but well, say it's Washington Street, as I recall.
You can check
I
it.
will check and correct that. Therefore, be it resolved that we recommend approval of SkinCeuticals 2023, provided that the applicants conform to all laws, rules, regulations, and clearance. Voted it unanimously with one recusal, Zach Roberts. Number 9. 9/10/23, and that Cornelia Street Block Party sponsored by Park Avenue LASIK. It's on Cornelia Street between Bleecker and West Fourth, full street closure. And the resolution, it recommends approval of the Cornelia Street Block Party, provided that the applicants conform with all laws, rules, and regulations and clearance. And further, provided that the application is amended to reflect a non-commercial applicant for the block party, and that no organized sports, including pickleball, are allowed. And that was voted unanimously. Number 10, 9/14/23. MDMA Plaza Hold, and that is Meatpacking District Management Association, MDMA. And the first location is on 13th and 14th Street, Gansevoort Pedestrian Plaza. The second is Gansevoort Street, 13th and Gansevoort Pedestrian Plaza full. The resolution, we recommend denial of the MDMA Plaza hold, was voted unanimously. Number 11 is the 9/16/23 Oktoberfest at the Beer Garden. This is the Standard Hotel Highline sponsor, and the location is opposite or on the street in front of the Standard Hotel on Washington Street between Little West 12th and 13th Street. Therefore be it resolved that CB2 Manhattan recommends denial of the Oktoberfest at the Beer Garden. Voted unanimously. Number 12, 9/18/23 Audible Theater, 5th anniversary, sponsored by the Audible Theater. Minetta Lane between 6th Avenue and McDougal Street, full street closure, primarily in front of Minetta Lane Theater. Therefore be it resolved that CB2 Manhattan recommends denial of Audible Theater 5th anniversary, voted unanimously. Number 13 is 9/21/23. through 9/23/23 for Joa Pop-Up, sponsored by TH Experiential. And it's located on 13th and 14th Street, Gansevoort Pedestrian Plaza, Hull. It is 9th Avenue between Gansevoort and West 13th Street. Therefore, be it resolved, CB2 recommends approval of Joa Pop-Up, provided that the applicants conform with all laws, rules, regulations, and clearance requirements. Therefore, be it further resolved that CB2 Manhattan further recommends that the use of a DJ at this event be eliminated or reduced. That was a unanimous vote of approval with one recusal, Mr. Roberts. Number 14, 9/21/23, the SNS Block Party. Sponsor is SNS Block Party Sneakers and Stuff. Little West 12th Street between Washington and 9th Avenue. Full street closure. Therefore, be it resolved that CB2 recommends denial of the SNS Block Party, voted unanimously. The remaining 15 through 21 are renewals. And those were all approved unanimously.
Okay. Do, we have questions on them? Let me just start with folks who are on the screen first. Frederica.
Yeah, hi, everybody. Is there someone there who can explain the reasons for denying the Audible application and also the details of the MDMA Plaza, as I understood it, Plaza Hold? Those two applications? Can we have a little detail?
Certainly. Yes, I think we did try to cover our reasoning in the whereases. I would say just offhand, I'll just summarize for you that for the Audible Theater, they really only wanted the part of the street in front of the theater. But because Minetta Street and Minetta Lane are both one-way streets, closing off a part of those very narrow streets would really not provide any emergency egress lane. And they would effectively close off the entire, not only the entire Minetta Lane, but Minetta Street as well, because it's a one-way that dead ends there at Minetta Lane. So it just seemed to be a real safety hazard.
And that was, how many days did they want the,
It was a one-day event.
and you couldn't see your way clear to doing it for one day?
That's correct.
Okay, and the other one,
There's a
the
lot of
MDMA
residential on
event?
those streets.
Mhm.
And it is going to be an interior event as well. So they can still have the interior event.
And the other one?
The MDMA, this was really a strange presentation because
Number 10.
Yeah, but who was the presenter?
all right, I'm going back to number 10, 9/14/23 is the MDMA Plaza Hold. The presenter representing MDMA had signed a non-disclosure agreement. And therefore, he presented some very basic outline of what they wanted to do, but they were not able to answer any of our questions about specifics of what is going to be held and how many, just how, all of the details that we normally get for any street event.
That is,
So, given their non-disclosure agreement and their inability to give us the information that we needed to make a judgment, this was all that we could do.
but it's strange.
What do we have in chat?
So it's a meat packing bid, so it's very clear to everyone. People may not know all those different.
Yeah.
I've got questions. Go ahead, Suzanne.
I had a comment, but I had a small question. I wanted to thank you guys for providing additional information in your whereas that to me make clear the reasons for denying them. And I also wondered if it would be possible to track the effect of these resolutions on the actual permit. You never look back and see how effective these were, and I would like to know that. That's the request.
That's interesting.
Go ahead.
Mark, you want to come up?
Mark?
Here you
Are you saying that you would like to know whether SAPO supports?
Yeah, I want to know, I mean, it's a question I would
Right.
have for SLA, like, we write these resolutions, I think
Right.
they're really well written, very clear. Do they listen to us? That would be nice to know.
Same with landmarks too.
Same with, yeah.
What's the hit rate?
We actually did.
Our track record, thank you.
Go ahead, Mark. Let Mar ask her question.
So there was an activation in Gamesport Plaza last year for Savannah, Georgia. And they didn't have like a bunch of pretty flamingos, but it was very similar to the one for the island of Bonaire. Did we approve that one? Did we recommend approval for that one? I mean, that one had a huge tent that took up the entire plaza. You couldn't even see inside. It was just one-sided and you'd go in and there was a raffle, giveaways. Did we approve that one?
I'm sorry, I don't recall. Does anyone else?
Know that we did, actually.
Well, I would say, I think that over the last year, the committee has become much more careful about creating a matrix of reasoning for when to approve and when not. It's been very haphazard over the time, like the events seem fun, but now it seems like Will and the committee are coming up with much clearer and more consistent guidelines. So I think that that's actually a change that the committee has made in the last year.
I mean, yeah, it. Maybe there's no specific, there's specific guidelines, but I feel like maybe there should be. Or if it's case by case basis.
I think the committee does have a set of guidelines, which I think maybe would be the best person to just to.
Given it that this is really.
Yes, although with the Aldo one, because prize, they pointed out that Aldo's has the shoe store in our district, Aldo's. So I thought that was a helpful.
It is definitely a component, whether or not an entity has a physical presence. Absolutely, absolutely. Okay.
Can I finish up my
Okay.
question then?
Oh, okay, if you have typos, why don't you can you
Oh, sure.
do you have if you have a hard copy, why don't you just provide them?
Yeah. And I'll just-
Yes, Frederica.
So, at one point, in my capacity as the liaison with the meatpacking district, Will and I had talked over the idea of having the matrix that would establish a criteria for approving and denying. And it was a good matrix, I thought, that the committee came up with. I did encourage Will to use it when they're denying applications. When they're approving them, it seems like less of an issue, but when they're denying them, it's a good thing to have it on paper. What were the criteria that the application did not meet? And I think this is a good example of where it would be a good idea to fill out the form and show where the application was lacking, so that it encourages consistency. It provides a record that supports the decision of the committee. And I would encourage you, Susan, to work with that committee to.
No, absolutely. It's a very sound idea. I will convey that to Will, and we'll see how he works on it. Yes, Marta.
That's three different things. One, the skins,
Suitable?
is the Gansford Plaza. That's the location of it. That's the correction.
If you just give the type, right?
Yeah, you had the wrong location. It's Gansford Plaza, so whoever,
All right, which one is that?
the one that got called out.
Skin suitable?
Wrong address.
I'm just looking, I'm just gonna add it.
So it's just looking at the application on the website, it's. Gansford Stream Plaza, sort of.
I know, but. Taking the comment.
Number two, when somebody withdraws, we should still put in a letter because this month, one applicant who withdrew went ahead and had the event. So we really need to have a recording, SAPO, so they know that they would playing games, obviously. And then number three, at the committee meeting, they did bring up the Gansford Plaza and the Astor Place Plaza, and that they're two different things. Both the Village Alliance and the Meatpacking Bid have their own events on the plaza. And they are also charged with managing the plazas for the city, and they generate substantial revenue. And so what we had suggested is not to say necessarily no to all events, because that is money that goes into the city offers. But what is happening is that it is being overutilized. And so there's not a way to distinguish when it's being used so that it's not overly programmed. And that's what I think everybody's bringing up. Why are these events here? It's because there's just too much going on there. And those conversations, I don't know if the bids have a decision-making role, but they benefit financially. Sure. So Will had said that at some point he would bring in both of those groups, but the agendas were very few. So it's hard to have larger discussion.
And also, I mean, I had a conversation with Jeffrey LaFrancois, the Meatpacking Bid, and his point was, well, we generate a lot of revenue also so that we can do a lot of public events. I don't know how this is obviously a question of balance and the qualitative competition. The other thing I was just going to say is that, Federica, if there's a matrix that's applied to turning down, to recommending denial, I think the same matrix should be used or expressed for approvals, because otherwise someone, that might say, well, you approved that guy. So anyway.
Yeah, that actually does. There should be consistency, whatever, for positives as well as negatives. Okay.
You can say the address again. Sorry, I'm typing it.
Gansford Plaza.
Gansford Plaza.
Yeah, it's the same as in some of the other events.
Are there any other questions or comments on any of the quality of life resolutions? If not, then we will move those into the omnibus as well. And now we will move to SLA.
Donna's not here, so.
Donna, yes, Carter.
How do you, since there's quite a few of these, how would you like to?
Why don't we do the
Most
first?
abbreviated fashion, or would you like me to? I'm just asking so that the long list.
I'm sure it is.
Can I just read the address?
I think just read the address. Yeah, let's start with that and we'll see if people have any issues.
Both committee meetings were unanimous for SLA 1, 450 West Broad.
Yeah.
All the resolutions were unanimous for the first committee meeting, SLA Licensing Committee 1, 450 West Broadway LLC, DBA Principe, 450 West Broadway. This was a expiration application to an existing on-premise liquor license. And the recommendation was deny unless the stipulations were adhered to. 174 Mulberry Inc. at 174 Mulberry Street. This is a transfer application for an on-premise liquor license. The recommendation was deny unless all the stipulations are adhered to. Number 3 is 337B West Broadway LLC, DBA Mezcal and Amaro. This is a new on-premise liquor license application. The recommendation was deny unless the stipulations were adhered to. Number 4 is Mishka Soho Inc., DBA Mishka Soho at 519 Broome Street. This was a new restaurant wine application, and the recommendation was to deny. Number 5 is M588 Catering Group, DBA Mangia, 588 Broadway. It's a new restaurant wine application. The recommendation was to deny unless the stipulations were adhered to. Number 6 was Amis 79 LLC, 79 McDougal Street. This is a new on-premise liquor license application. The recommendation is to deny unless the stipulations are adhered to. And then numbers 7 through 17 were layovers or withdrawals.
Does anyone have any questions or discussion on that first set of resolution? Okay, seeing none, then we will. Okay, then we're gonna move those into the omnibus and go ahead with the second.
SLA Licensing Committee number 2. First resolution was Delise and Saracen LLC at 178 West Houston. This is a new restaurant wine application. The recommendation was deny unless the stipulations are adhered to. Number 2 is Pier 55 Inc. and Use LI F&B Management LLC, DBA Little Island at Pier 55 Hudson River Park. This is an on-premise liquor license application, and the recommendation was deny unless the stipulations are adhered to. Number 3 is Sapasuk LTD, DBA Sape, I guess, I'm not sure how it's pronounced, 240 West 14th Street. This was a new on-premise liquor license application. The recommendation was deny unless the stipulations are adhered to. Number 4 is 11 Sushi Kai Inc., 11 Barrow Street. This is a new restaurant wine application. The recommendation was deny unless the stipulations are adhered to. Number 5 is AW Hospitality LLC, 244 West 14th Street. It's a new on-premise liquor license application. As a re-notification, as it had been over 270 days since we first heard it. The recommendation continues to be deny unless the stipulations are adhered to. Number 6 is 78 Fifth Avenue. I'm not sure if that's how it's pronounced. DBA, the Ariston Flowers and Cafe at 78 Fifth Avenue. This is for a new tavern wine license. The recommendation was to deny unless the stipulations are adhered to. And then number 7 through 12 were layovers, withdrawals, or no-shows.
Any questions, discussion, comments on any of that second group? Okay, then we will move those into the omnibus as well. Okay, and that takes care of the committee reports with resolution. So now let me just run through the list of other committees if there are any reports. Arts and culture. We didn't meet, okay. Cannabis. Didn't meet. And I will also add, let's see, economic development.
I'm actually gonna give an outdoor dining working group report.
Okay.
I'll try to be breezy, but I haven't given a report in a while, and I think I've got this pretty a lot to kind of update everyone on. Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Great.
Here.
So as you know, a bill was passed in City Council. I'm just going to quickly go over what this working group has been up to. Last fall, we met with Councilmember Chris Marte and Councilmember Eric Botcher to reiterate the board's priority considerations for outdoor dining rulemaking. As a result of those meetings this spring, we presented the board's positions on outdoor dining directly to the City Council bill drafter this spring, and that was thanks to Councilmember Eric Botcher, who made that happen. Here's what we advocated for that made into the final bill. These are past positions of the board that were in our priority considerations list. That was a letter that was sent last April, and we had followed it up last November, and then as a result had this meeting with the bill drafter. The community board review period increased from 30 days to 40 days. It's not the 45 days that we asked for, but it was more than 30. We also gained the notice process for the roadway cafes. That was not initially part of the bill, which was Intro 31A that came out in September 2022. And we also advocated for seasonality for roadway. That made it into the final bill. As of lately, we sent a letter to the City Council's Committee on Consumer and Worker Protection and to the rest of the City Council members. That letter was distributed on August 1st. Again, reiterating task board positions. We focused on 3. And we also had that letter signed on by Manhattan CB1, Manhattan CB3, Manhattan CB5, and Brooklyn CB10. It was a very, very quick turnaround to get them signed on. And I think had it not been the last week of July, that we probably would have and had a little bit more time, that we would have been able to get more on board. Unlike us, a lot of boards take the summer off and are a little slower to respond. But I've gotten to know a lot of different district managers and different board chairs across all of the 5 boroughs. So it was a really united effort to get different, just to hear different priorities and really trying to focus. For this, we were trying to focus, since it was a full city council vote, we tried to focus on all of the different different board areas and specific ones that we knew based on how they had voted for the text amendment. And that was a 1-page letter. It's on the CB2 website. I'll be revamping the permanent open restaurants page, but the letter is on there now. It also has a nice page of endnotes if you're really into that kind of thing. The 3 areas that we focused on were density, residential being treated as commercial, hours in residential areas, the noise from outdoor dining would be permitted until midnight, despite the New York City noise code, and that being in all residential areas and non-conforming uses. And then for costs, the fee tier was unrealistically low for our area. It's $25 a square foot for roadway. Of the highest tier that would be CB2 in Lower Manhattan, and then $31 a square foot for sidewalk. That's yes. And it's a 4-year license with an increase from the 2. And our reasoning there is that the roadway cafes will cost the city more money due to the administrating city services around them, and the fee tiers don't reflect that. And then we also pointed out that the legislation actually diminishes council members' ability to resolve specific issues for their constituents. There is no call up for the roadway cafes, which are going to be the most intrusive in our area. We followed up the letter by contacting different city council member offices to follow up on their public positions before the vote. So again, this was all happening in a very quick timeline. As you know, August 2nd, just to kind of keep this all in context, August 2nd, there was a lawsuit brought upon by a group of plaintiffs where the judge issued an injunction on the temporary open restaurants program. This is the day before the vote, the city council vote on Intro 31A, the outdoor dining bill, and said that basically the temporary open restaurants program is not in a state of emergency and is therefore no longer valid. The judge has since commented that they're not going to go down and tear any of these down or anything like that. It just basically now DOT, as a result of that, DOT is no longer accepting new applications for the temporary program. So we kind of entered that transition period. So I'll quickly go over, if anyone's interested in the legislation. It was Intro 31C, so this is the 3rd version of the bill that came before the Committee on Consumer and Worker Protection at Council the morning before the stated meeting. Our council member, Eric Botcher, voted against the bill in committee as well as at the full city council hearing. In total, there were 34 in favor and 11 against in the city council, and there were people absent, obviously not the 51.
Can you share how the other 2 council members voted too?
Oh, yes, of course. Council member, in both the committee and both at the full city council hearing, Councilmember Eric Botcher voted against the bill, did not have any public comments at that time. Councilmember Christopher Marte, I urge you to go watch it, had a really very vociferous commentary. He voted against the bill, as well as, however, Councilmember Carlina Rivera did vote in favor of the bill, did not have any commentary. If you watched the bill hearing, or if you didn't, Councilmember Gail Brewer directly quoted the 3 points in our letter. And before her vote, she also included them word for word, just about in her newsletter that evening, about what needs to be addressed during the rulemaking.
She voted in favor.
She did vote in favor. She did vote in favor. And there, yes, she did vote in favor. And so now the bill was signed by the mayor on August 16th. That was last Wednesday. So now the clock is ticking, the clock is ticking. So DOT has 90 days to promulgate the rules, which is November 16th. This is going to move very quickly. The permanent open restaurants program is now known as Dining Out NYC. There's also a whole branding. And again, I will put links, and I've got a presentation and to put on our website that will direct to the other links and other frequently asked questions. So this is going to go through the CAPA process, the City Administrative Process Act, which is how the city promulgates rules. Outside of that, that is the public engagement to my knowledge. There is going to be no separate or individual board outreach, et cetera, for input. So that is the public process.
It's a done deal.
I mean, I think that, it's going to go through there'll be a rules hearing where we can address it there. Individuals can address their own positions there. But there's nothing where they're going to come to different community boards or even host. I think back in 2021, they're supposed to have all of these different design and charrettes and whatnot, and that just did not materialize. We continue our outreach to other Manhattan boards about finding commonality to stand united during the rulemaking process. And so the outdoor dining working group may need a date in September, so stay tuned. That's my report.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you for that very
Yeah, thank
detailed report.
And I guess my question is, so what do we know is gonna happen and what is still up in the air? In other words, we know that the price per square foot is gonna be this, but design details are up in the air, like what still have to be determined and what is already.
What is in rulemaking?
Yeah.
So the design, the questions of platforms, and Chenault have reached out to me about the platforms and whatnot, and kind of having that conversation. So we have past positions on those items. It's
And what about what I thought I read about sheds having to be torn down in the winter and built up in the summer?
So, yes, so by next November, the shed, once an operator applies for the permanent program, once that application is out, they then have a compliance period that they have to get their kind of house in order. So the goal is there's not going to be 4 walls and a roof. There's not going to be an air conditioning unit. There's not going to be electricity.
So those things have already been stipulated. They are not still up in the air. They've already been determined that those will be part of the new board.
Yeah, they have released renderings that show like a very light fabric type, if even that, with more of just kind of a waist high barrier. And
so do you have all those on your website and your report, in our website and your report, or send the link so that we can share that and know it?
Yeah.
So that we know what is they determined and what things.
Yeah, yeah.
The platforms.
And that's going to be determined during the rulemaking. I don't think, as we all know, the sidewalk cafe rules seem to work pretty well for us. I don't see them changing those very much from the old program. But I would imagine that this bill changed a little bit from May of this year to then the one that came out, the end of July. So it's most likely a lot of this has been drafted already.
Yes, Carter.
It's interesting because throughout this process, we've promised an opportunity to comment on the rulemaking. Yet the CAPA process does not allow for it. But they do have to be voted on at the end by city council. and to approve. And so all these city council members had promised this discussions, but yet there's no forum for them to happen. So there is an opening within that to ask for, whether it's with a group of community boards, to really specifically engage. Now, I suspect that the majority of the rules are very common sense, and they're not dissimilar to a functioning normal program, with some of the exceptions of what constitutes a obstruction, measurement, service aisles, some of these little things that actually are a big deal for us because we have back to back everywhere. And so really narrowing down what we want to bring to the attention of DOT is important. If they do not show us a draft list of those rules early enough. But a lot of, we can't over talk things that we know are common sense, but the things that have big impacts. And the other is, and I think we have only two areas, but is that some sidewalks are too crowded. Like, for example, Broadway between Canal and Houston. Can you imagine shutting off 50% of the sidewalk there? What's going to happen on this Saturday afternoon? Oh, it's chaos. Or the south side of 14th Street, right below Union Square. You know, and there's no addressing those types of issues, but these are just some of the things that we have an opportunity to raise, and in a reasonable manner, because they really have that stuff. And so, but without seeing the draft rules, which they are not sharing, we can't identify it. So the pressure is really for us to be able to see what they're working on soon, so that we can comment, because we've been promised to comments.
But Carter, let me ask you, our representatives are already in tune with our interests. I mean, is there any other avenue that we have other than our elected officials? I mean, should we be approaching city council members who do not represent us, but who have purpose?
Yeah, but that was one of the successful things with Gail, you know, commenting on this. But it is left city council. It is now, it is now in an agency. And the agency has their closed process. And what we're trying to do is keep the door, is to do what was promised all through this process. From our first DC presentations on this.
I guess my question is, what is the mechanism?
We don't know.
I mean, is it asking our elected officials to barge in, or is it?
This is
what we're
going to require further dialogue with our electeds to figure out how do we open up this process so that we get information flowing to us. And that, you know, we were considering the very short amount of time that was available to turn out that letter and how relatively effective it was. I think that if we pursue that, we can create a coalition of concerned community boards and the people who are elected to represent them to actually have a sizable number so that that cannot be ignored.
Yeah, and then to answer your question, Susanna, the clock is against us because everybody thinks what they've heard is that there's some opportunity to comment.
Right.
And there's not. And so that's the dilemma of this happening in August with the days ticking away. And then the way the community board process works on a 30-day rolling basis, you kind of end up at some point you're cut out. And it can happen very quickly. And many boards have not spent as much time on this or nuance, and so they're not able to join in concerns because they're not reflected in votes that the board desire to take.
So the question is, do you have the manpower to spearhead this, or do you need help from other members of the board to actually do?
It's gotta be more than just.
Well, besides the working group.
What's are really involved at this point?
You know, there were that wanted to sign on, but either they were being a little more cautious of it not going before their full boards, And then some, it was just, they were out of the country.
I mean,
So I've.
we're simply going to have to take a leadership on this because of the disproportionate impact it has on us. And because we're simply more dialed up to do it. And we're gonna have to basically continue that process that Valerie sort of spearheaded, if we're looking to make an impact.
Yeah, I mean, the big dilemma is outdoor dining has been great in many outer borough areas where it exists before. And so the density that we have in both Marte's district, Councilmember Botcher's district, who voted against it, some of it, represents, I think, up to 30% of the city's outdoor dining. And yet those concerns are not being weighed. These impacts are simply not the concern of other parts of the city. And there were no changes in a year, such limited changes to the bill that didn't address any of these. And we're gonna feel the impact.
We're just gonna have to work on this one. It's just gonna take the work. Okay, and Valerie, we will keep everybody informed as you decide on the next step and the working group, and if you're going to have a meeting, and we will let everybody know. And anyone who's interested in participating, by all means, I'm sure extra hands are always welcome.
Of course.
Absolutely.
And thank you to those who helped and gave advice.
Let's get back to our list of any of the other committees. Did equity raising was not?
Do you guys want a refresher on what's going on in cannabis right now?
Might as well.
So some of you may have heard what CRO granted the second against the CARD program, the equity program under which all the current licenses been granted on the 18th.
Excuse me, whoever's speaking now is inaudible.
Yeah, Mar.
I'm sorry, Sonoma. Here I am. No. Let's do that. So a TRO was granted against the social equity program called CARD, under which all of the licenses, current licenses, are, I hope you guys can hear me now, were granted. On the 18th, an actual injunction was granted. There is a group that is suing the OCM and the CCB, the Office of Cannabis Management, and the Cannabis Control Board, saying that the CARD program is unconstitutional because it was not part of the MRTA, and that the social equity groups listed in the MRTA were not all included in CARD, or that CARD just shouldn't have happened. I can share a link if you guys want with the suit. The next meeting date is Friday. Hearing date is Friday. The judge in the injunction seems to have kind of cleared some sort of path to allow some CARD licensees who are far enough along in the process that it would be extremely detrimental for them to have to stop and reapply and, go forth that way. Will be allowed to continue. We will find out more on Friday. The OCM has actually submitted a list of 30 CARD licensees that they would like to have exempted from the suit. So I guess that's all if anybody has any questions. We have 2 applications coming in September, so people are still continuing to give notice. Great. That's all.
Okay, thank you, Mar. Human Services.
Oh, we did not meet.
Okay, land use.
Land use did not meet in August.
Okay, parks.
Yeah, we met, and we had a presentation on one topic, which were updates on Hudson River Park. There were 4 topics that they covered. Just notes, no resolution. You can see they wanted to tell us about an RFP they'll be sending out for marine operator at Pier 40. They wanted to give an update on the Gansevoort Peninsula Park, which is going to be opening very soon. Pier 45 decking replacement and an update on all the summer events they do in the park. So that is that was the discussion. And you can read it in the notes.
Terrific, thanks. Schools, is anybody here for schools? Okay, I assume that there was nothing to report. And traffic? Didn't meet. Okay, so that makes up all of our standing committees. Let's get to new business. Everyone has received a copy of the resolution to authorize authorize our members to claim a qualifying disability. As I mentioned earlier, while the open meetings law was amended to allow this, we are required to officially authorize the use of this option, just the way we had to pass a resolution to authorize hybrid meetings. Since the law has now been further amended, we must additionally authorize the specific right to claim a qualifying disability. As what will happen is that anyone who is doing that will fill out one of the forms, the copy of which you've been provided with. It's an attestation. It will be kept on record. We are not asking for any documentation or proof. If anyone has questions about their concerns, please address them to me. It's something I drafted this, just so you know, based on the assumption that people were supportive of this, since we had been unofficially, recognizing this. If anyone has any objections to this, now is your opportunity to state that. Otherwise, I'm assuming that this is something that people will be supportive of. And okay, if not, then I'm sorry. Okay, if not, since not, we will move that into the omnibus as well. And now I think we are ready to simply take a vote.
Question on this.
I'm sorry, yes.
Is August the time to bring this up? Because I know that full board will adopt it, but full board, this is really a full board discussion since it concerns us as a full board.
I will certainly be bringing this up. I just wanted to sort of also put it out there because I haven't had a chance for other people to look at it. This is also an opportunity for if anyone thinks there's an aspect that's missing or needs further elaboration, that's what also we're doing right now.
Yeah, just instead of adopting, good for opportunity to comment should they choose to at the full board.
Oh, yeah, no, that.
August executive sessions.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, again, as I said, it's sort of like this also puts it on people's radar because it's been part of this process as well, but everybody, of course, will be receiving this and be given plenty of opportunity to comment on it well in advance of September's meeting.
So this is just a vote for recommending that it be presented to the full board?
Yeah, that's all. Okay, so if there are no objections, we're going to vote on the omnibus. Okay.
Okay, so I haven't done this before. Okay, so there's a roll call vote?
Just right.
Yeah.
You have a list of all the items that were.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Landmarks has 6 resolutions. SLA 1 has 6 resolutions.
That's just yeah, we're not voting on the letter. That was just part of the report.
Oh, okay. SLA 1 had 6 resolutions plus 11 other types of actions. Layovers, whatever. Layover.
Recusals, no shows.
No shows. And SLA 2 had also 6 resolutions plus 6 others. Layovers and no shows and so on. And quality of life had 14 resolutions. And then we have the new business, vote on the disability recommendation. So, roll call vote for the executive committee members. Susanna Aaron. William Benish is absent with notice, and Katie Padanaro is absent, and Amy Brenna.
Yes.
Rich Capipolo,
Yes to all.
Valerie De La Rosa,
Yes to all.
Barb Fitzgerald,
Yes.
Susan Kent,
Yes to all.
Janine Kiley,
Yes to all.
Ivy Kwan Arce. And Patricia Laria is absent, and Brian Pape is yes to all. Rafferty is absent and
She gave me notice,
absent with
and
notice,
Katie had given me notice.
absent with notice. But not Patricia.
No.
All right, Shirley Scunville,
Yes to all.
Janelle Spence,
Yes to all.
Anthony Wong. Yes to all. Very good. And Eugene Yu.
Yes to all.
Good. Well, and that's all the voting members.
Okay,
It is and unanimous.
okay, great. Is anybody have anything else that they want to discuss? Okay,
I had a question.
okay.
Did we ever, there was that gentleman who had come to the last exec meeting about their.
Yeah, I did, I'm right.
Don't worry, I can.
Maybe they were all over it. I think a bunch of people contacted. A lot of them.
Good.
We definitely help for the meeting.
Great. If there's nothing else, I will take a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Okay. I will assume that's a unanimous vote.
Yep.
Thank you, everyone.
Yes, thanks.
Enjoy
Thank
the
you,
rest
everyone.
of the summer.
I don't want to.
Here.